I'm an elite zombie hunter with Igor. This was the worst day of my life since the apocalypse. Written by J Group from r/nosleep. At first, when the dead began to rise, there was panic, mayhem, everything we had seen in movies and television. It all came to pass. All governments were wiped out, every world leader killed and reanimated. The systems and structures that we all had come to rely on was revealed for the thin and fragile glass tower that it was, and it shattered into a million pieces and collapsed. It was total anarchy, at least for a little while. Small groups of survivors such as myself roamed the countryside for months, looking for shelter, setting up camps. That was how it started in the beginning. Hunter-gatherer types. We traveled around trying to find a place to call home for a little while, until the hordes of zombies began to form and cluster together, wiping out everything in their path. And then move on. But after a while, structures began to form. Systems. Organization from the chaos. Evenness from the entropy. I was within that elite group of disciplined warrior survivors from the very beginning. Those of us who had decided to make a change for the better, and to set up something to replace the nothing that currently existed. That was how Igor was formed. International Ghoul Hunters, Operation Roundtable. By that point, we had a few pilots who could take us around and bring us all together for face-to-face meetings when we had to. We had also managed to set up some kind of rudimentary internet again, that we could all use for the purpose of communication. It wasn't anything near as good as the original, of course, more akin to a BBS platform from the 1990s, but it was something. The Roundtable, as we called it at first, was a loose organization of leaders from various nations who wanted to work collaboratively together to bring the world back to normal, and to deal with the superiors. The superiors were what we called the zombies who had started to evolve. They terrified all of us more than anything we had ever seen, and we knew if we didn't take them out, they would destroy us all. Every bit of progress we had made would be undone. Of course, every round table needs an Arthur, and we had one. Perhaps that was the reason why we named the organization what we did. I honestly don't remember. But it was he who brought us all together. Who knows if that is his real name or not, but it was all I ever knew him as. Of course, he was British to boot. I'm Canadian myself. We had Americans as well, Germans, French, Brazilians, Koreans, Australians, South Africans, and representatives from a dozen other countries. It was a big table. Arthur had agents planted all over the world, and I was one of them. We rooted out the Supremes and reported back to him with our findings. Then we would send backup as necessary to take them out before they could build too big of an army. Oh yeah, did I mention? The Supremes could telekinetically control entire hordes of zombies? Because that's the whole problem with them. You can't have people like that around in the zombie apocalypse. You just can't. It's not a good idea to let folks like that hang around. They're nothing but trouble. The guy I'm about to tell you about was no exception. It was a typical reconnaissance mission at first. We were in the downtown core of Toronto, the burnt-out husk of towering buildings all around us. The city of a couple million people was a hollow shell of its former self. No one would have dared go into that city at the beginning. But now it was a different story. The undead ghouls who had taken over there were few and far in between after years of hard times, and we could take care of them handily. At least so we thought. Want to go check out the old Rogers Center? Somebody said. I think it might have been Cassie. But then again, it could have been Stella. It doesn't matter. It was no one's fault. Sure, I said. If it had been a busier day, I would have said no. I was a leader after all. But it was quiet. We had barely run into any undead since that morning. It was like they were all hiding out somewhere. I missed going to the Blue Jays game, even if they never did win another one without Joe Carter. We walked the long staircase off of Front Street, making our way towards the stadium. I had an image in my mind of going onto the field, picking up a bat, and hitting a ball with it. I imagined it sailing into the outfield, a major league home run. Usually, I was so mission-focused, but I was goofing off that day. Maybe I was just tired of the grind. I think maybe it was something else too, though. The glass doors were all smashed out, making it easy to get inside. There were a couple of zombies milling around the foyer, and we made quick work of them. Cassie drove her katana blade through an eyeball. Frank caved in a skull with a sledgehammer. Tom stood back, watching out for an unexpected ambush, ready to intervene with his crossbow if necessary. The security gates had been destroyed by looters, and we slipped past them easily. We made our way towards the playing field, and I was overwhelmed by nostalgia. Memories of going to see baseball against my wife, my family, my friends. It all came flooding back. My knees buckled from the emotion of it all. They were dead. Every last one of them. I would never see them again. I would never watch another baseball game. There would be no more picnics, beach outings, or family dinners for any of us. What was the point of it all? My team must have sensed my sudden melancholy because they stopped with me and actually said a few sympathetic words. "Hey man, you okay?" Frank asked. "Give him a minute. He's dealing with something. We've all got shit from our past that comes back sometimes." I shook my head, trying to get rid of the thoughts. It wasn't easy. "Let's go play some ball," I said, trying to smile and feeling it stretch fake across my face, like a too thin coat of paint attempting to conceal a worn and splintering facade. Frank wasn't buying it, but was nice enough to not say anything. He put his meaty arm around me, and the five of us went down the aisle towards the playing field. Tom was quiet as usual, keeping an eye out behind us for everyone looking to sneak up on us. Surprisingly enough, the dugout still contained a few baseball bats and balls, even a couple of gloves. It looked like the players had cleared out in a hurry, and no one had come back since. We went out onto the field, taking our impromptu positions, and I saw the nervous looks on everyone's face. It had been so quiet lately, but we knew how fast things could change. Still, we thought we could handle anything. Frank threw a pitch at the strike zone. It was a lob, and I managed to give it a good crack on the first swing. The ball went sailing into the air and towards left field. Cassie ran for it and grabbed it, throwing it back to the infield. Stella was playing catcher behind home plate, while Tom stood off to the side of the field in the stands, looking around, waiting for trouble. "Come on, Tom," I yelled. "It's no fun without another batter. If you come down, you can take a next swing." I thought he would say no. Tom was always the one who stayed off to the side while the rest of us had these brief moments of fun. The stoic bastard never wanted any part of it. But he surprised me, and he came down to the field, actually grinning for once. I handed him the bat, and he stood at the plate, waiting for the next pitch. The huge, empty Major League Baseball stadium was hauntingly quiet, our every movement echoing across the vast space around us. Frank threw the ball a couple more times before Tom managed to get a hit. The ball went far into center field, and Cassie went running for it. Tom made a dash for first base, then for second. Frank was out there yelling for Cassie to throw it to him at second, saying they would get him out there. That was when I saw them. I was speechless for a minute, and the ball almost hit me in the head when someone threw it into home plate after an error. They had all been focused on the play and didn't see what was happening around us. At all the entrances, all around the field, undead were filtering in like patrons just before a big game was about to start. They were coming down the aisles toward us from every direction. It took a minute for the others to notice. I was too dumbstruck to say anything. Our game stopped entirely when they saw me looking and noticed our dilemma. Everyone dropped their baseball mitts and ran for their weapons. But we knew it was hopeless. We knew we were doomed. There was clearly a superior here, in the stadium with us. He was commanding the undead that were surrounding us on all sides. That was the only way they could be so organized. They wandered onto the field lazily, without haste, only revealing their surprising hunger as they came close enough to smell our warmth and our sweat. Then they appeared suddenly ravenous, opening their mouths wide and snapping at us with unnatural speed. The ghouls went after poor Frank the worst. He was a huge man, about 6'10". The superior probably saw him and commanded them to go after him first. He swung his sledgehammer around at a giant arc, obliterating several zombie heads with one fell swoop. But there was a wolf among them. Wolves are what we call the fast ones. The ones who act slow at first but then attack with stunning speed and ingenuity. They're not superiors, but they're close. Ever hear the expression, like a wolf in sheep's clothing? That's why we call them that. Because you think they're normal ghouls, but then they surprise you and tear your throat out with their bare hands. The wolf jumped on Frank while his back was turned, swinging his hammer in a great arc around him. He landed on his back and began to tear at the muscles in his neck, ripping them apart while he screamed. As I was distracted by that, 4 zombies surrounded me, and I had to sidestep quickly to prevent myself from getting devoured. I quickly swung the black bat I was carrying and caught one upside the head, causing him to stagger backwards. He regained his balance almost instantly and came towards me. While I was momentarily focused on that, the other 3 came at me, as well as 6 more. We were quickly becoming outnumbered, and hundreds more were swarming in by the second. They were storming the field like an angry mob. Only this mob was intent on eating our flesh. The smell of all of them was horrifying, and the terror I felt overwhelming. All I could see was the rotten faces all around me, black teeth and eyeballs oozing pus. Their skin was gray and decaying, with gaps and tears showing exposed muscle and bone beneath. And the noise of them all, moaning and gurgling while they attacked us with a complete lack of emotion or self-awareness. I saw Cassie go down and her sword went flying into the air and landed near me. Hurrying over to it, I picked it up off the ground, knowing how much it meant to her. I wanted to keep it safe, even if it was only as a tribute to her. Her terrified and desperate screams rang out hollow across the field. That was when I vowed that I would get out of there, one way or another. The wolf zombie came running towards me and launched himself into the air. I drove the sword point into his eye as he did, and the momentum carried his head right through the steel, destroying his brain. At that moment, I realized all my friends were dead. The horde was zeroing in on me, with no one else in focus their efforts on. Big Frank the Tank stood tall among them, his eyes now red and full of hunger and hate. Cassie stood up next and stalked toward me, joining the crowd of undead as they approached. They attacked me without mercy, my friends and foe alike, as if we had never known each other. I fought like I had never fought before, and let me tell you, I'm known for my ability to get out of situations even as completely fucked up as this one. I slashed off zombies' faces with the katana, cutting heads off while spinning like a dervish and somersaulting through the air. I parried and thrusted, hacked and slashed, drove through their legs and climbed atop the crowd's shoulders, severing heads and bouncing upon the ones that stood there, jam-packed together, using them as planks to springboard to and fro while I did my dirty work. Necrotic hands grasped my legs all the while, tearing long and ragged gashes from my flesh, breaking off fingernails that remained lodged inside me. Eventually, the pile of corpses was staggeringly high. It filled the baseball field almost. But even I had my limits. My arms were filled with blood, heavy and clumsy after hours of defending myself from never-ending onslaught of undead. One of them was cunning and quick, a wolf probably. I thought I had them all beat, but he grabbed me and took me down, and that was it. I was finished, I assumed, as the crowd of them remaining came at me and descending upon me with salivating mouths and hungry eyes, their teeth bared and hands outstretched like greedy infants, reaching for a teat. But the superior had other plans. He floated in through the air, descending among the crowd of them just as they were about to consume my flesh. "You, I will keep alive," he said. "You are strong, and I like strong people by my side. I will keep you as my scribe. You will write what will become the new history books, telling of my conquests, making it known for generations after that it was I who created this new world." Thanks? I wasn't really happy with this new arrangement he was imposing, but then again, I really wasn't in a position to argue. "Does that mean you aren't going to eat my brains?" "Precisely. We can't have the new scribe stumbling around, drooling all over the scrolls as he writes the history books, can we?" I was very relieved. He noticed that and made a little tisk noise. "Oh, I didn't mean for you to get too excited. I said I can't eat your brains. I didn't say anything about the rest of you." The undead looked at me with hungry eyes once again, now having obtained permission to enjoy a meal, albeit within a limited menu. "Only his lower extremities, please. He'll need those hands of his to write with. We wouldn't want that juicy brain to go to waste, now would we?" The pack of them closest to me began to pull strips of flesh off my body with their bare hands as I screamed. They drooled and slobbered as they feasted on my legs and feet until there was nothing left of them. The pain was unimaginable, the suffering. Well, it's pointless to talk about now. I have a new kind of suffering to deal with at this point in my life. Now I get to write about the new world as it is created, A horror playland for a demented psychopath who enjoys nothing more than torment and suffering. He controls them all now, the whole lot of them. I get dragged around like his publicist, putting out press releases that nobody can read but me and him, and I'm starting to get the feeling he's practically illiterate. I sure hope Igor is out there somewhere. If not, I'm really fucked.